Yeah, this is Andrew Issachar, and I got a little bit more proof of San Francisco, California being Jerusalem. I'm gonna match some a couple of scriptures with a video. Just pay attention.
200 corpses were dredged up amid the construction of a library. Then in 1993, 750 bodies were found during the renovation of a museum. San Francisco only has 2 cemeteries for the entire city, and neither of them perform active burials. But these bodies are turning up nowhere near either of the 2.
I'm gonna match a couple of scriptures that match
During the
that
mid
San Francisco,
1800s, a carpenter
California
named
is
James Wilson
Jerusalem.
Marshall began building a water power sawmill near Coloma, California.
Just to let you know, I don't believe
Then one
nothing
day
that
in
these motherfuckers
1848,
talk about.
he eyed glittering
I
yellow
just watch with
flakes.
scriptural eyes
He
and
had struck
scriptural
gold.
ears.
Marshall tried
Spiritual
keeping
eyes
the
and
discovery a
spiritual
secret,
ears.
but news spread within days, and thousands of prospective miners
So you
with
should
gold
do the
fever
same.
began pouring into the region from around the world. Many of these incoming miners docked boats in the nearest port.
In the beginning, the founding of San Francisco was chaos.
Everything
it was
I told
unlike
you.
any other city, really, in history. It's what one historian calls an instant city. It just happened. Parts of it were built just overnight, and there were, before the gold rush, maybe 1,000 people living in what was then
San
called
Francisco
Yerba
is the
Buena,
first to do
and within
everything.
a year, there were
Everything is
25,000.
a duplicate from
Then
San
within
Francisco,
a couple of years
California,
after
aka
that, 50,000.
Jerusalem,
It was
aka
really chaotic.
the Golden
The
City,
building was
Wicked
not
City, Bloody
uniform.
City.
Decisions
You
were
name
made very quickly.
The home of the
Crime was rampant, and diseases like
gay
typhoid,
flag, the
cholera, and
abomination
measles
of
plagued
the
the
Most
region.
High's covenant,
The vulnerable native population began dying
the
off.
home
As the bodies
birthplace
piled
of the
up,
EU.
more room for the dead had to be made. So the city established 4 large cemeteries starting in the 1850s. Laurel Hill, Calvary, Independent Order of Oddfellows, and the Masonic Cemetery, known
What
as
kind
the
of
Big
names
Four.
are those?
These took up about 60 to 70 square blocks of land. By the 1880s, San Francisco had built 26 cemeteries. The dead and the living resided in close quarters. Homes were built near the grounds, and streetcars zigzagged around the expanding grave sites. But by the end of the century, attitudes towards cemeteries were changing. Residents' comfort with such close proximity with the dead were beginning to wane. There were more disease outbreaks, and scientists warned that the wind carried from cemeteries was a health hazard.
Get some scripture now.
Across the country, burial practices began to evolve. For example, the city of Cambridge, Massachusetts established the practice of building cemeteries far from the bustling city center.
Hold on.
Mount Auburn Cemetery, the first rural garden cemetery.
Yes, in 2 Maccabees 9 verse 15. That's when the enemy said, or what's his name? Antiochus said, I will make Jerusalem a common burial ground or cemetery. That's in Maccabees, 2 Maccabees 9 and 15. Antiochus in a rage said he will make Jerusalem a common cemetery burial ground. And then you go to Jeremiah 22 and 19, when the Most High said, my people will have a burial, the burial of an ass, and they will drag their bodies outside of the gates of Jerusalem. They will drag their bodies outside of the gates of Jerusalem. And let's get back to this video. Pay attention.
In the United States was built 4 miles west of Boston. This distance gave peace of mind to health-weary residents and allowed visitors to attend grave sites in solitude. San Francisco adopted this idea, but instead of building new ones, they began to move their existing ones.
Every other place adopted every idea from San Francisco.
Way far out, where they thought the city would never expand to. And this was out by the Pacific Ocean. And
did you just hear that?
Outside
of what?
This,
just like in Jeremiah 22:19, outside of the gates of Jerusalem.
Expand out there. Large parts of San Francisco, what is now maybe 60-70% of the land, was sand dunes. a lot of the
San
area
Francisco was a
wasn't
sand
really
dune.
developed
It
until
was a place of
after
a
World War
blizzard.
II in the 1950s.
It had tropical
They
rainforests
didn't
where
envision
the
that
Amazon
this
queens
land
used to live,
would ever
all in
be
Frisco.
used for serious
Y'all better
commercial
start
and
playing with this
residential housing.
Issachar blessing
But this was just the
and just start
beginning.
looking this shit
The
up for
26
yourself.
cemeteries were quickly filling up.
Stop going in circles like the enemies
Cemeteries
want
must
you to.
go was bolded in newspaper headlines.
By 1887, the Archdiocese, the Catholic Archdiocese of San Francisco,
What the fuck is Miss Doubtfire lying about
purchased
now?
property down where I live now in Colma. People thought he was a little crazy.
Outside of
but
the gates of
he was
Jerusalem.
he thought forward quite well. He knew his cemetery in the city was full.
The area was about 2.2 square miles and mainly used
Pay
for farming
attention.
for flowers, vegetables, and even
Remember the
hogs.
scripture,
It was
22
just a
and
few miles
19,
south of the
Jeremiah.
city, which made it easily accessible as many
Drag the
streetcars and
bodies
trains were routed through the
outside
town.
of Jerusalem.
It was a round trip day to have your service in the city, to take your loved one out to the cemetery, bury them, have an after burial party at Malloy's Tavern, and then head back to the city, and you could do that all in one day. And you could also visit your loved one who was buried there, round trip all in one day.
And whose bodies were these? Israelite bodies. Now I'm fucking with
Were
these
you
commercials.
recently
Hold on.
injured in a car accident? Look at this check for
But public disdain for cemeteries continued. And in
I don't
1900,
fuck with
San
commercials.
Francisco took extreme action
This is
and
hard to do, bear
banned
with me.
all burials within city limits.
I'm homeless.
Left with
I
no
ain't got no
funding,
motherfucking
graveyards
equipment.
turned to ruins.
Listen what the bitch say.
Headstones and statues were frequently overturned. People loitered on the grounds and used the spaces for illicit activities.
Jeremiah
Skeletons were
22
sometimes
and
dug up
19.
for use as Halloween decorations.
The whole San Francisco
In response, San Francisco made
foundation is
another
bodies of
drastic
Israelites.
declaration. It would begin moving all of its bodies out of the cemeteries. Cemetery owners quickly purchased even more land around San Mateo County. In 1924, this area became the town of Lawndale.
You hear that shit?
Throughout the decades, cemeteries began transporting bodies from San Francisco to the new grounds. This removal was a delicate process. If a casket was preserved well, it was moved along with the body. But if it had signs of deterioration, the bones were thrown into boxes. If a family wanted the headstone to be moved along with the body, they had to purchase it for $10. The headstones that got left behind were used for public works projects or dumped into the
How the
bay.
fuck you gotta pay to
Although
die?
many advocated for this removal, it was also met with strong opposition, especially
All
from the
these
Catholic Church
Israelite
and the
bodies.
big four private cemeteries. But one by one, they began giving in and moving bodies.
What? Jeremiah
Many of these corpses ended up
22:19
being dumped
again?
into mass graves. In the end, only one of the big four, Mission Dolores, was allowed to remain
Mission
and is a
Dolores,
historic site in the city
home
today.
of Moses.
The only other cemetery
San
is San
Francisco,
Francisco
California.
National Cemetery, which sits on federal land and strictly reserved for veterans or eligible family members. But no one else is ever allowed to be buried within city limits. By the 1940s, about 150,000 bodies had been unearthed from their resting grounds and moved to Lawndale. In 1941, the name was officially changed to Colma. But this process was rushed, and as we found out earlier, bodies continue to turn up underneath San Francisco.
Yeah.
Where there are now homes and businesses, there
Israelite
used to be
bodies
graves. The
from
Lincoln
Jerusalem
Park Golf Course was once the site of Golden
due to
Gate
the
Cemetery.
smallpox.
Students at the University of San Francisco had the former
Not these
Masonic
fake ass
Cemetery under their
diseases they
feet,
talking about.
and the 3-year-old girl found under a home was buried in Oddfellows. Colma is the one true necropolis in the United States, a town dedicated to the dead. Colma has just over 1,500 living residents,
Anyway,
but they live amongst
I
1.5
just wanted to prove to
million
y'all
dead residents.
again with scriptures.
It is known
San
as the
Francisco
City
and
of Souls,
Jerusalem. I don't
and the
really
town
give a
slogan
fuck if you
reads,
guys believe
"It's
it or not.
great to be alive in
I just
Colma."
doing what I say I'm gonna do. And
Many
say
famous people are
I'm
buried
doing
in
what
the small
Most High
town.
says to do. Show
Businessman
your
Levi
cause,
Strauss and
proof.
baseball player Joe
That's
DiMaggio
what I
are just
do.
some of the distinguished names inscribed on headstones.
Andrew
But as we
Issachar.
know, history has a tendency
Y'all
to
better get it
repeat
right.
itself.
Start listening.
With all the
Pay
cemeteries
attention.
here in Colma filling up, what's not
Check
certain
the
is where
scriptures
people in the
yourself.
Bay
22
Area are
and
going to be
19.
buried.
In
Maccabees second.
2018, cemetery
9 and
officials
15.
predicted that the town had an estimated
Issachar
40
out.
years remaining before this would happen. If you're planning on dying, you better come see us, James Carlin stated, one of the executive directors of Acoma Cemetery.